Alright, so for this one, I'm gonna go a little bit looser. On the prior one, I decided to I kind of prepped myself a little bit, and you had a little bit of an idea of what I wanted to say. For this one, I think I'm just gonna, you know, blind go into it and see how long it takes me. Also, the sound I think was a little bit messed up. I was using my AirPods, and I think that the AirPods sort of take a second to register that sound is happening. And so as a result, the starts of my sentences were a little bit quiet. So my apologies if you were watching those. Um, but yeah, should be better now. Am I going to fix those videos? Absolutely not. I am losing myself. Um, you know, I don't know. Longest palindromic string substring. Given a string S, return the longest palindromic substring in S. So ABA is the longest palindrome in Babad. Oh, and also, let's see, or BAB. Okay, well, if they're both valid answers, as long as, I guess we don't have to worry too much as long as it accepts both of them. But we'll see if it actually means that it's also a valid answer. So, how do you look for a palindrome as a substring? Well, there's two. First thing that comes to mind for me is to work from the middle out, because you're looking for symmetry. So, because you can't, if you have a palindrome, you can't add only one character and have it still be a palindrome unless they're all the same letter. So, for example, with Babad, what I would try to do is maybe start with the B, and then I would check, okay, can I add a letter before and after that and still have a palindrome? Yes. All right, cool. And then maybe keep going from there. The other thing you have to consider is, what if instead it was an even length palindrome? Because for CBBD, we kind of had to start with the pair of BB. We can't start with one letter. It's an even numbered one. But thankfully, we can recognize if there be an even numbered one, because in order for there to be an even numbered one, there would have to be a pair. So I guess we can just pass through it and see if there's a pair. And if there is a pair, work out from there. Okay, that makes sense. But how do we implement it? So let's see. We'd want to take some starting index. We'd take that, and then we'd add -1 and +1 to that starting index, if we can, and check if that's a substring, and check if that's a palindrome. We actually don't need to check if that's a palindrome, because we can just check if those two are the same letter. Okay. Huh. Maybe there's, the more I think about it, the more I think there might be a better way to do this. Because we can just look for pairs. So maybe we could just worry about the indices of where the same letters are. All right. Let's just start working and see what happens. Let's start. So let's see, we have A, B, A. Let's just iterate through this list normally. I know I said to work from the middle out, and we still will. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go for I in range length S. Okay. So now we're just iterating through all the letters, and we can just use that as the middle in our palindrome. From there, I'm gonna get rid of all this. We're going to have to worry about the max length, so let's set the max length to be 0 for I in range. Yeah. Okay, so after we check that letter for how long of a palindrome we can get, we'll check to see if it's greater than the max length. And if it is, so blank being the length of the current substring, we're going to see if that's greater than the max length. If it is, then max length is whatever that is. And the longest palindrome is whatever that is. We'll figure that out later. I'll figure that out later, I hope. Okay. So we're going to iterate through, and we're going to check to see if the letter before and after is the same. What if we did a little funky though? What if we did it like iterating by halves, and then you'd have halves represent the space between the letters, and then that could work for even numbered ones? Because I know I said that you could do a pair. Well, you could just look for pairs, but I don't think I want to. Okay. How about we say we'll use the step feature of the range. We're going to go 0 to the end of the string, and we're going to take half steps. Okay. And then we'll have one condition for and one condition for checking space. Okay. This could be something. We'll see. We have checking letter and checking space. And we'll recognize that we're checking the space in between letters by seeing if it's half, because you can't have a half index, but that's just how we'll interpret it. Okay. So if we're checking a letter, that means that it would be a whole number, and we can, I'm pretty sure that we could just do modulo 1. So we could say if I modulo 1 equals 0. That should check if it's a whole number, or isn't. Now we'll just do this. Yeah, I modulo 1 equals 0. And we'll have else as the other option. Okay, so reminder, when I say checking letter, that means that the first letter that we are working with in the substring is one letter, and then we're working out from there. Okay. We're also going to need to put this in a loop. We'll check the condition later, but we're going to loop through until it doesn't work. This probably isn't the best way to do it, but one way that we could make sure that we're never going out of bounds is just by using try and accept, or try and catch. Okay. My brain's a little fried at the moment, but I feel like this could be a good start. Okay. Okay. This could work. So hopefully you see what I'm trying to do here. But so we iterate through each letter. Then we start a loop, and that loop is gonna end when, I think I'll just do a while true and then break it. But that loop will iterate through as we add on letters to the front and back of the possible palindrome. We're gonna say If it's if it's a integer, then that means we're checking a letter. Specifically, we're going to start with the letter at a certain, well, at that index. And then we're going to take that as our substring. And then we're going to add letters to the start and end if they match right here. So if the letter before the current index matches the letter after the current index, then add those on with string concatenation. Okay, that'll work, sort of, not really. Because this will work for one loop, but it won't work for multiple. So we could have I, and then instead of 1, what if we did like bonus or deviation? Okay. And then deviation being how far it is from the middle. Okay. So we're putting this in a try block because there's a chance that this character doesn't exist. Okay, so we're going to catch index error. I just had to look up how that's done. We're going to catch an index error. And if we do, we can just break it. Because we can't expand this palindrome anymore. As for else over here, we're going to have to figure out the way to start this. We're going to say current substring. Oh, actually, I get it. I'm starting to get it. We don't want to put it in this loop because that'll just reassign the substring. We actually only need to check if it's whole or a half before we start the loop, just so we can figure out how we want to start the string. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so I know I'm being a little bit less vocal here. It's kind of hard to explain my thought process as I process it. actively, but I think this is making sense. So we're saying if it's a whole number, then we start with the current substring just being that letter. And if it's a half, then we start with 2 letters, but we're of course going to have to make sure that they are the same. Okay. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me. I think I'm starting to make more sense here. So we have our kind of seed letters. If it's an odd numbered lengthed palindrome, then that means we start with 1 letter and middle out from there. If we start with a space between 2 letters, then that means it's an even numbered palindrome and we start with 2 letters and even out from there. And the reason why we want to do this, instead of like just starting here and then, let's see. I guess we don't really need, I mean, I kind of like starting with letters, but I guess you don't really need to start with letters. I don't think it makes a difference though, in terms of time. But it does mean we're going to have to change the deviation, because I is always going to be, so I is the middle, and for even numbered ones, the middle is a half. And so the deviation, I got it. The deviation will be 1 for that, but it will be, let's see, it'll be 1.5, or just, I think it'll be 1.5. How far away? So we have, let's say we have 2.5, so it's between the second and third one. So we get the current substring by saying 2.5 minus 0.5 is 2, and 2.5 plus 2. Plus 0.5 is 3. Yeah, it'd be 0.5. It'd be 1.5, and then you increment it by 1 every time. Because for the first iteration, we have 2.5 minus 0.5 is 2. Then the next one we want it to be 2.5 minus 1.5 is 1, and plus 1.5 is 4. And then you'd increment it from there. Okay, that makes sense. We're going to say if they're not the same, then just break. So you can just stop the loop. And if there's an index error, then that means you've gone out of bounds. I'm actually thinking this is kind of close to working, but I could be totally wrong. Float object cannot be interpreted as integer. That makes sense. Line 5. Okay, so the built-in range function does not understand non-integers. I am just going to steal a function that does that. So this is like a custom range that'll work with non-integers. Not quite cheating. I would have done basically this. This just makes it a lot easier. Okay. So this we can just do while true, because it'll get broken out of one way or another. Because as soon as it's within reach of a non-existent variable, it has to stop. Or a non-existent letter. String indices must be integers, not float. I was expecting that, to be honest. We can just it's always going to be an integer, so we can just turn it into one. We can just verify that it is one. That is right, we do have to worry about the first instance of that. makes sense. Let's do the same thing. We'll just use try and accept to catch those index errors. I can't believe that. Did that work? Dang it. Interesting. Interesting. So it worked for the 2 test cases, but what went wrong here? Almost all of them passed. Why did it get upset here? Why did it add on an extra letter? That's interesting. So we know that it must have executed this line. Oh, I know why. Because -1 will return the last. -1 will return the last item in the string. That's right. This is what I get for using try and accept. We had to change it from being try and accept to saying if I minus deviation is less than 0, or I plus deviation is greater than length of s minus 1. So this is like our own little thing. This is good, because now we're never actually getting an error. We're going to do the same thing here. Except that won't. We don't have to worry about fixing that. Let's see. Did that work? Huh. So why did I get upset at that? Oh, I have the conditions flipped. I was going for a negative and I actually did a positive. Yep. Actually, you know what? Instead of using if and else, let's just change it so that it breaks. And if it doesn't break, then I'll have made it to this line of the code. Nice. Let's try that. Awesome. Okay, that was fun. Really, yeah, proud of myself for working through that. A little bit of a funky solution, possibly, but I'm happy with how it turned out. So yeah, I did the steps through by half steps, because that way I could use the half steps to represent the spaces between the letters, because that way I could act on even numbered or odd numbered letters by middling out from there. King of the hill sort of situation. We have a max length and a longest palindrome. To be honest, we could just use longest palindrome, but we don't really need a max length. We can just compare the lengths of the current palindrome and the longest palindrome. But you know, everything is a learning experience. We use that custom loop to loop through by halves. If it's even, or if it's a whole number, then we just middle out from that letter. And if it's a half number, then we check to see if that's a pair. And if it's a pair, then we try to middle out from there. And then we just keep on adding more and more to the deviation from that middle point to see if they keep matching. And then we check to see if that current palindrome is the longest one. All right, so that was kind of fun. I actually enjoyed, you know, working through that live instead of having a better idea of the solution. It's also kind of more of my own flavor. I think I'll bounce back and forth between the different styles because they're both challenges in their own right. Either way, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining. And yeah, I'll see you on the next time.